Why, hello. Hello, hello. Do a quick audio check here. Everything sounding good? How's everybody doing? Really, really excited today. Everything sounds all right here? All right, let me see. Pod mic. Good? All good? All right. Really excited, folks. We're going to give a few more minutes for folks to trickle in. In the meantime, my name's Tyler. I'm here at Julius headquarters here in San Francisco, California. Today's session, we're going to be going over notebooks. This is a continuation of our onboarding series. If you missed it, we had a session last week where we went over the basics to getting started, some of those really good best practices to use. If you missed it, we have a recording in our YouTube channel that you could see. If not, we're also having another session next week that you could join as well. So we're going to keep on doing these sessions, help folks get to understand some of Julius's capabilities, learn a little bit more about some of those best practices to use, and just some other tips that you could have along your way in whatever work that you're doing. Cool. Going to hear from some more folks. Yeah, nice. From Colorado. Awesome. Spain. Wow. Okay. San Francisco. Nice. Nice. East Bay. Right on. New Jersey. Cool, cool. Before we get started, let me go and share my screen. In case you missed it, do follow Julius AI on Twitter. It is Julius's second birthday. It was on Saturday, so 2 years old now. Really thankful for all the users and all of the support over all these years. Really excited to announce we're kicking off a birthday sweepstakes. So if you guys share any visuals that you use by using Julius and create in Julius, tag us on our socials at Julius AI, and then add in this tag, Julius B-Day Sweeps, to your post. We're going to be giving out swag every single day for the next 2 weeks. I'm really excited to just give back to the community who's helped support us along this way, right? Be sure to follow us on socials, and we have a lot more coming, so really, really excited for folks too. All right, we'll give it one more minute for folks to hop on in. All right. Cool, let's go ahead and get started. So again, my name's Tyler. I'm here at Julius headquarters. We're gonna walk through everything about notebooks, right? Whether you're a brand new user who's just used Julius a little bit, never heard of Julius at all, or you're an experienced user really looking for more ways that you can get the most out of notebooks, this is the session for you, right? In this session, I'm going to share my screen. We're gonna work through a use case using some sample data that I have. This is a mix of subscription data, transaction data, and some customer demographic data. Not really only just for these use cases. You could use notebooks for any sort of work that you're doing at the end of the day. But in this case, we'll just do some financial analysis using Julius Notebooks features. And I'll walk through all the different things that you have at your disposal when you're using Julius. With that, let's go and get started. So let me go ahead and share my screen here. So this is the Notebooks UI, right? If you're brand new to Julius, if you're in the home page here, to get to this, you could either click on plus and click Notebook for new notebook, or you can go ahead and go into My Notebooks here. 2 different ways that you could really easily get started using notebooks. Again, last week we covered the basic chat and thread feature that we have here. Really simple interface to get started, really basic way to get some insights and just chat with Julius just like any other sort of LLM tool that you've used in the past. But in today's session, we're going to go over notebooks, which is a little bit more advanced here. Has a lot more functionality that we've built out, jam-packed with features. And it's a lot more helpful, at least in my opinion, for some folks that are looking for a little bit more insights from their data or are doing repetitive analysis over time. Before we hop in, I'm just going to do a quick overview of the panel that we see here. Here we have the notebook itself. So we see the notebooks. Clicking this will go back to your notebooks page. And then we have the brand new notebook that I created here. Actually, clicking on this, you could open up the notebook's detail panel, and here's where you could add in some names, descriptions, and what I'll talk about later, some custom instructions just for this notebook, right? And then finally, some tags and a cover image if you do want to share this externally as well. Going back here, so there's some other buttons that we'll work through and just as we use the notebook, we have a way to clear cell outputs, closing and collapsing cell outputs, adding new cells, and actually importing notebooks. If you're familiar with Jupyter notebooks, you might have something to start with instead of starting from scratch. Then over here, just like we covered last week, we have our navigation panel. In this case, I'm actually just going to collapse this just to give us a little bit more room to work with. And then we have our actual notebooks and cells UI here right in the middle, and this is where we're going to be doing most of our work today. Finally, what I mentioned before, we have a Run All button. I'll talk through this one as we go along. And then we have the Data Explorer window, which you could expand, which I'll do as we continue to work through it. So that's the basic overview of the notebook. Before we hop in, key things to know, a notebook is essentially a collection of what we call cells. And you could think of cells like a building block, right? These are different ways that you could either interact with Julius, add files to Julius, or run or execute code within Julius too, right? I'm a former chef in my past life, so I think of cells similar like ingredients, right? There's all these different ways that you could mix different types of prompts or different types of files in order to get the analysis that you're looking for. And to start off, I'm actually going to add one of those here. And what you can do is you could hover between existing or if there's no cells at all, you could add a new cell here by hovering over it, and it'll bring up this menu where you could see cell, a drop down with all the different cell types, code if you have a specific type of code you want to run, or text, which is sort of like a markdown cell. And we'll talk through each one of these as we go along. But in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and start with a markdown cell, and I'm actually going to paste in our overview of what we're going to cover today. So far we've talked about a notebook's overview, and next up we're going to go through how to add, clean and restructure data, do some exploratory data analysis using notebooks. We're going to do some customer demographic analysis that I talked about, and then finally some visualizations and summaries, right? All within our notebooks environment. Again, I did this all inside of what we call a text cell, really great way to get started. It's essentially just a markdown and latex cell where you could add in either any markdown formatted text. This could be either notes about the analysis that you're doing. It could be context for your coworkers or teammates if you're going to share this notebook with them. Or you could even do things like add in videos if you wanted this to be more of an instructional video or instructional notebook. A lot of different features here, pretty much all the standard things you could expect inside of a markdown cell. With that being said, let's just go ahead and get started. This next type of cell that we see here, which is in every single notebook by default, is what we call a source cell. You could think of this like the way that you could add in either files, spreadsheets, or connect to any data sources, whether it's your Google Drive or some other data connector like Snowflake, BigQuery, etc. You could even select different files like the ones that you've already uploaded to Julius in the past, or you could even use the files that Julius has created in the analysis here. Right? So you could think of the source cell as your hub for adding in any sort of data that you need in your analysis, or any context that you want to give Julius, whether it's a spreadsheet, PDF, Excel file, CSV, you name it. While you're in any of these cells, you can also click in the upper right corner to change the cell type, and you could choose any one of these to switch it to those as well. That being said, I'm going to go ahead and click Add Data Sources here, and I'm going to go ahead and upload my data. And here I have 4 different docs. And you've heard that correctly. Yes, you could upload multiple documents at the same time. I have 4 CSVs going over all of the different data sources that I talked about before. And I'm going to click OK, and it's going to work and upload all 4 of those to the notebook. Right? Free users, you can only work on 1 file at a time, but for anyone that's on our Plus or Pro plan, you could do multiple files as well. If you do have a spreadsheet, like we talked about last week, that has multiple tabs, that counts as 1 file, and Julius will be able to pull the data from all of those tabs as well. And vice versa, if you have multiple files, like in this case, you could connect up as many files as you can, and you could also join these if there's some way to join them together, whether it's something like a user ID or some logical way to connect all of your data sets together, if there is a way. I talked about data connectors. That's something we'll cover in another video or another webinar next week. But the TLDR there is you could also connect to your data sources as well. So if you have a data source in BigQuery, you'll also see all the different columns and different tables that are inside of your data warehouse as well. But we'll cover that in next week's webinar. Cool. Right away, when I first uploaded that data set, you'll see that there's some suggested next steps, right? Just like our threads feature, this Julius has already taken a look at some of the data that we've added, all 4 of these sheets, and has suggested some sort of analysis that we can do. right? If you click one of these, and I'll actually do this right now, it's going to create a cell, and then you can go ahead and run it here. I'm going to go ahead and refresh really quickly here. Looks like there might have been a bug there. I'm just going to do that one more time. So it said analyze sales over time, for example. And that's one way that you can get started there. You could treat this next type of cell called a prompt cell just like any other prompt from our threads feature, right? You could type in what you're trying to do and what you expect Julius to execute. And then you can click on the upper left-hand corner here to run this specific cell, right? That's one way that you can do it. The other way is you could also press enter, and that'll also run the cell just like you're typing into a Julius thread. What we see here is just like our threads feature, Julius is going to execute or think of the code it needs to execute in order to fulfill that prompt. And it's going to do it all within our contained environment in our sandbox here. So here you can see Julius is taking a look at the data sets that we've connected. And then now it's going to do the analysis and generate those insights that I was looking for. While this is running, I'm going to go ahead and open the side panel that I mentioned before, and you can actually see some of the data frames and the underlying data that's powering both our analysis and those insights within this notebook. Go ahead and expand this, and you can take a look inside of those columns and different rows inside of all those different spreadsheets that I uploaded. I find this very useful for really understanding the formatting of your data and also monitoring and seeing how Julius is transforming the data over time. So very often I'll keep both of these windows open. I'll keep a Data Explorer tab open here, and then I'll also keep the cells overview here in the left as well. So here we see the analysis that's being done. Again, these are really high-level overviews. I'll actually dive really deep here and show you some of the capabilities of notebooks. Cool. So next up, let's just do some other steps here. So typically with any analysis that we're going to be doing inside of notebooks or whether it's outside of notebooks, I always typically break it down into these 4 key steps. First, adding data, which we've done already. Second, cleaning and restructuring, any data, whether it's something that you have in a data warehouse or something that you track manually in a Google Sheet, might need to be restructured to facilitate the analysis. Don't worry, you don't have to do that by hand. We'll have Julius do it for us. Third, we'll do some exploratory data analysis. This is letting Julius dive even deeper than it originally had when we first uploaded the data. I find this very useful, and we'll talk through why we do this. And then some other actual analysis, that whatever analysis you're doing. In this case, we'll do some customer demographic and sales analysis, but you could do it for anything from finance use cases, marketing, to business and business operations, to even research if you're doing scientific research there too. And then finally, visualizing and summarizing and making a report for whoever you're planning on sharing it with. And we'll walk through all of these steps together. In the meantime, I'm going to go all the way down here, and I'm going to go into this cell, and I'm going to say, let's clean and prepare the data for analysis. Look for any structuring issues or formatting, inconsistent format. I'll say inconsistent formats. And again, I'm just going to press Command and Enter here, and it will run this cell. Things to look out for, commonly timestamps that aren't formatted the same way, missing or null values, very common to be in your data sets. Inconsistent columns and naming might be another thing, and things like different formatting of like values, for example. So millions being formatted differently, dollars not being formatted the same way. All of these can actually trip up, whether it's Julius or whatever analysis tool you're using, even if you're writing the code or SQL yourself, different things like that can end up making the analysis not run smoothly. So in this case, I'm going to have this cell here to have Julius run through and restructure the data as needed. While this is running, you might be wondering which model I'm using, right? A very common question for our users. I'm going to expand the window just a little bit here. You can click the cog wheel in the top right section, and this will bring up the actual settings panel. Here I'm running Claude 4 Opus, but if you click this, you could select from any of the models that are available to you, whether it's some of ChatGPT's, OpenAI's O3 model, 4.1, or even the Julius default, which for free users, perfectly great model to use. It chooses between either OpenAI's or Anthropic's, depending on your use case. But if you do want to specify, you can change it here as well. I'm going to go down here and see this output, and you can see Julius is still going through and cleaning and looking through ways that the data is either inconsistently formatted or any of the other reasons that we mentioned before. All right, so here we go. It's cleaning. You can see in the preview of this Python code, it says it's data cleaning summary. So it's going to tell us all the things that it did to help structure our data. I find it very useful. Again, even if you are 90% confident that the data is structured and cleaned the same way, I really recommend just having Julius take a look just to double check. There can be some even inconsistent cells, that might have been just not populated correctly, or something that caused it to not be populated at all. So it generally is a good idea to have at least Julius run through and just do a quick sweep of if there's anything it can do to make the analysis even better. Contextually, I think Anthropic's models take a little bit longer to run, so this is why it's pretty thorough in running. I typically use O3, and we'll actually switch over as we continue the demo. But over here in the data panel, Data Explorer, you could see all the different cleaning and analysis it's running and the structuring it's doing. And at any point, you could always either click on one of these to expand it, or you could even click on the table here to view it as well. All right, and it looks like it's just about ready to print everything out. And then here, Julius is going to summarize all of the data cleaning and data structuring that it had done. So here we see, I've completed a thorough analysis and cleaning of your data sets. Here's what I found and fixed. Exactly what I mentioned before, some date and timestamp inconsistencies, and even duplicate transaction IDs, right? I'm not saying that every single duplicate is probably a bad thing. Sometimes you might have duplicate rows or duplicate IDs across multiple tables, but something that Julius had flagged. Calculation errors, you might see some as well, and then missing values as well. All right, so we have everything cleaned and ready to go. Again, if you do see something wrong here or you want to do more cleaning and restructuring, by all means you can. Simply just press cell to add in a new prompt cell, and then you could tell Julius how you want to proceed. Or you can even ask Julius, hey, is there anything else that you want to fix before we move on and continue? Again, what I mentioned, I'm going to go ahead and switch over to the O3 model here just to show you a different model. And again, you can do this all within the same notebook. It's not going to really impact the cells because you're switching between models. It'll just affect the cell that you're running at that time. So at this point, I want to do some exploratory data analysis. Really common thing for data analysts to do, right? When they're diving into some data that's either given to them or one of their data warehouses too. So I'm going to go and say, please run some exploratory data analysis. Yes, I say please. I intend to look for insights about my customers and some transaction data. And I'll just say one more thing, don't do any in-depth analysis just yet, just gain some context about my data and ask me any questions about my use case as needed. This is how I like to prompt, and again, we'll share one of our prompting guides with you. But typically I explain, and just like with any prompt engineering, explain what you want Julius or the model to do, what your use case is. Here again, I'm going to tell it, hey, I want to do some analysis on customers or some transaction data. And I really want to bottleneck it in between, like don't do anything beyond this. You don't want Julius to start making charts or visualizations just yet. I really just want to catch it up to speed and then ask me about any questions it has. A lot of times Julius won't know like what your use case is or some of your business context or even some of the research that you're doing. But adding in that ask me any questions about my use case as needed really does help get Julius thinking like, hey, what else can I ask the user here? Is there any other context that we can get from them to make at least my analysis at the end of the day better? So I like prompting like that. Okay. So here is doing a quick first pass, taking a look. Did some visualizations just to print some of these out. And then now it's saying some early takeaways too. And then cool, some questions as well. And I find this very useful to do. First, like a lot of data analysis and insights that you look for, sometimes you don't even know what the end goal is, or you don't even know which questions to ask. So having Julius just help prompt you at the end of the day, switching the tables around, I find really useful to get you thinking about your own data or your own use case too. So which business questions matters most? Growing high value sentiments, reducing churn. Hey, let's talk about reducing churn. I like that one. So I'm going to say here, and KPIs, so we'll do one by one. So I want to say, Julius, let's do some financial analysis. Let's do some retention and financial analysis. I'll say, yeah, let's focus on reducing churn. And I want to, let's see, Which KPIs do you track? AOV, repeat purchase rate, customer acquisition cost, or LTV? I'll just say, and LTV. Actually, no, let's keep it broad. Let's keep it, let's say reducing churn. List out all the potential KPIs that would be worth tracking. And any time-bound events, I'll just say, let's look at the last 6 months of data. And I'm not really concerned about privacy or PII constraints, at least in this case, because this is all synthetic data. There's no real customers in any of this as well. So I'm going to run this. This whole time we've been using prompt cells. Really common cell that I would say you use in 99% of the cases. But after we're done printing this one, I'll show you some of the other cool cells that you have at your disposal too. All right, so we have Julius running the cell here. I'm actually going to close some of these as well, so I want to monitor what it's doing. You can actually watch as it transforms and prints some of these new tables out. I'm going to click here on the table, and then you can see it here as well too. We'll just keep going. It's generating those. And then at any time, you could also look in some of these calculation issues. This is one. In this case, I want to see this one. So the monthly DF, so the monthly data frame. The really cool thing about notebooks, again, is it's really great for exploratory analysis. If you're doing the analysis and work from the very beginning, right, without knowing what exactly the end goal is, if you're just exploring your data, that's one really great use case. The other great use case is after you're done with the data analysis and you want to repeat it a second time, right? And this transitions well into our second type of cell, which is a code cell. So here I'll show you an example here. Really common question from folks is why use code cells, or how do you get more consistent results, not just from Julius, but from notebooks specifically? And the reason why you might be getting varying results, even using the same model and even using the same prompt and using the same data, is because all LLMs are non-deterministic. They try to think through a new solution, or they won't always do the same exact code in order to fulfill your prompt, right? Can be a blessing, can be a curse, right? You could think it's a blessing because it gives a lot of functionality and a lot more usability across a lot of different use cases and helps it really understand, hey, there's different ways that we could solve this problem. It makes things faster. There's not just one concrete way. But if you're looking for something you want to repeat over time or share over time, that's where you kind of do wonder, like, hey, how can I get more consistent results from notebooks, right? Well, there's two ways, right? And I shared here, if you create a cell, a code cell, one thing that you could do is simply copy the Python that worked correctly, and you could paste it. And this time, this means that the model won't regenerate the code. It'll just execute this same exact code that it ran before. That's one way that you can really make sure it's within those guidelines and sort of swim lanes that you define. You could update this code as needed, or if you are familiar, not like myself, but if you're familiar with running or executing Python code, you could update this as well. So that'll be another way that you can get more consistent results. Or the third way, say for example, I loved the exploratory data analysis that it did here. You could simply click this little stamp icon, which is turn into repeatable steps, right? You'll see this at the top of any cell that has any outputs in it. Once you click this, it'll open up this new screen. And what it's going to do is it's going to split out my prompt from the code that Julius ended up executing into two different cells. One of them will be a markdown cell, just to explain the analysis or the sort of execution or code that's going to follow. And then secondly, the code that's going to run. If you're happy with this, and again, I'm just going to go with my gut here, I think this is okay, as I liked the analysis, you could simply click on the bottom right here, accept two changes, and those will take into effect here. You'll see the prompt, again, was split out from the code cell. Key things to call out here is these names, these variable names, will stay the same, right? It's essentially just taking that code out from the same cell that I had just run, those same outputs. So if you end up adding in, for example, a new file here, if I go to source, do make sure that you are referencing the right name here. One easy way to do this is if you ever do rerun a notebook, or you want to do the same analysis again, just make sure that the file name is exactly the same. Or alternatively, just update this so it matches whatever file. So any reference there. Just one thing to call out as you continue to use Julius to make your results more reliable and consistent. So those are the two main ways, two features that the engineering team has built out to get more consistent results. As always, they're looking for feedback and they're always looking for new ways to make your results more predictable and more consistent over time, especially if you're trying to do the same analysis over time. If you do have any feedback, please let us know. Reach out to us in team@julius.ai. Let us know, hey, you're seeing an issue with notebooks, or hey, I really love this feature about notebooks, or hey, I have a feature request about notebooks. Really, we really do monitor that notebook or that inbox 24/7. And I do remember there were some users who reached out like saying, hey, I wish there was this feature to allow us the ability to import notebooks into Julius. That's why we released this button here. Or, hey, I wish there was a way to download my whole entire analysis. Well, there's actually a feature here where you could download it as a Jupyter notebook. So do reach out to us and let us know any feedback that you have as you do use notebooks. Or let us know if anything's going really great or going even not as expected, and we'll get back to you. So that's the overview of the different types of cells. Here for the code cells, there's also two other ones as well. If you are doing R analysis, I do see some comments I'm watching in the right side that some folks do use R and RStudio. You can select the specific language here too. So this is compatible, and you can change the runtime of the notebook up here in the upper left as well to whichever runtime that you are using, whether it's R, Python, or Lean Python even. But here you could also change those cells as well. To those specifically ones. And then also SQL. So that's another way that you could do it. More common for us to use for data connectors, which I'll talk about in our next webinar. Cool, let's keep on going with our use case here. I'm gonna actually just remove this one that I made and we'll stick with the one that I split out. And I'll say, perfect, let's generate some visualizations that summarize the findings about my users, highlight any trends or KPIs. And here I will run the cell. Looks like I'm going to refresh one time. I'm going to flag this. Again, if you do see any errors that you're not expecting, flag them. We'll flag it to our team here as well. So I'm going to go down. I'm going to regenerate that one cell that I wrote. So generate any visualizations and highlight any key insights and KPIs. And I'm going to run it. Contextually, and again, if you haven't seen our videos playlist on YouTube, check it out. We're always pumping out new videos, but we just released one, or we have one coming up, which outlines some of the things that we're seeing different amongst all these models. Again, all these models are really great to use, but it's really interesting. And one of the ways I tested this was I ran the same exact prompt with the same exact data in 4 different notebook runs, showing the outputs of all those different models. So definitely check out those videos there as they come out. And we're always releasing new content as well. If there's any tutorials or any other content that you guys are looking for, whether it's a walkthrough of a specific feature, maybe a use case separate from the one we're covering today, or if you're really just looking for something to get started with, just let us know. And we're happy to share resources that we've created for you on our channels. Cool. So we have Julius generating them. Again, I'm going to collapse these menus here, and then we'll see the analysis. Key metrics, again, it's going to highlight some total revenue. Somewhat decent looking monthly revenue trend. You can see some seasonality around the holiday times, it seems like, around January, December. Cool heat map that we could probably dive into is showing the breakdown of different products in different categories. And then also customer lifetime value. This is, again, where we asked Julius, hey, let's focus on reducing churn and some ways that we could increase customer lifetime value over time. Again, you can really go as deep as you need here with Julius. Again, this use case is very high level. We're going mostly into just this financial data, but I've used notebooks, and something we could potentially cover is using notebooks for training ML models. Like I've done a random forest classifier or k nearest neighbors classifier. I've done even logistic regressions. All of these we have notebooks created, and you could even find them here in the Explore Notebooks page. But all of these are different ways that you could sort of interact with Julius to do some of the work that you're looking to do for whatever use case it is. So here you see some of the features that Julius had output. Some ways that you could export data. Again, you could just download these visualizations if you like them. You could also even export to Google Drive if you've connected your Google Drive, something that we released just last week. And you could even export any of these tables or any of these files as well. Let's say, for example, I'm done with my analysis. I have a solid understanding. Again, I could spend all day looking at some of the financial transactions and diving into some of the stuff. But let's say, for example, I'm done with this, right? And I want to share this with my leadership team, for example. I'm not just going to share this whole notebook. This is like a workspace for myself to do the exploration and data exploration. But here I'm actually just going to add in a cell, and we're going to use the user input cell. And I'll show you how this one works too. Very common, or very not as common cell to use, but it has some very niche and very cool use cases. In this case, I'm going to type in a question. So I'll say like, hey, who is the end user of the report? What audience should we cater this analysis and report to? You could think of a user input cell as a way for us to prompt whoever's reading your notebook or whoever's using your notebook in the future, right? This is extremely helpful if you're either first making a notebook for yourself to reuse over and over again, where you might want to tweak some slight things but not make big changes to your notebook. Useful if you want to share it with some of your colleagues as well. If you have some other users on other teams, right? Say I'm a data analyst, but I want to share it with my marketing team. Maybe I need some marketing context. Great way for you to ask some questions for them that the marketing team can provide there. Also, if you're just going to share this publicly, maybe you're making an equity calculator for your startup. You could also do this all within Julius, right? You could say like, hey, input the amount of shares or what's the current valuation of the company, right? Anytime you do want some input from whoever's using your notebook, that's what the user input cell is for. And what we could do here is tell Julius, very similar to a prompt cell, use the user's input to summarize and craft a report for the audience that they mentioned, right? So in this case, I'm going to say, hey, we just did the financial analysis. Give me a report that I can share to my COO, Corporate Operating Officer, and we'll run this as well. You could do anything here. You could even do like someone from my IT or security department, my CEO, my professor, anything you're looking for. And then you can see here, it's generating the report as well. This is one way that you can do it. So some key observations, again, is really redacting away a lot of that nitty gritty in the weeds detail and highlighting those high insights just for this use case, so for the COO there. That's one way that you can do this. The other way that I mentioned before is over here, you could download a generate an analysis report. Clicking this one will actually take all of just the non-code, non-prompts, and it's going to print it into a report that you could easily download and share as a PDF too. Something that we built out from some of the user requests that we've gotten. And here you can see is something that you could easily share and download as a PDF, and you could even copy this link where you could see the reports as well. Very cool. The other cool thing I didn't mention, so again, this is one way that you could do the analysis. If I'm done, right, let me go back to my notebooks. If I click on, actually, let me make this clear. I'll just rename this my Tyler's webinar notebook. If you go back to notebooks, you could actually press create a new run. And what this does is it takes everything that I had ran and makes a brand new copy of it, or a fork of it, if you will. And here I could simply just clear all of the cell outputs. And then here you'll see I have a brand new notebook ready to be run. And I could just upload whether it's new or more up-to-date data. I could connect to my data source and grab the most recent data, anything that you're using to do that same analysis without needing to make the notebook all the way over from scratch. That's one way that you could do it. Other cool things you could do is you could share this with multiple users as well. That's something that I really haven't touched on. If I was on a team, for example, and shameless plug here, if you do sign up for Pro, you do get 2 free invites to 2 seats to your team that you create for free. You could invite users to collaborate with you in real time, right? So you could simply share the link with them, and they can even hop into the same notebook live, watch all of the different ways that I'm creating cells, typing in, prompting Julius, and see the outputs in real time together. And as you see my little icon here, you'll see where I am at. You could see the same thing for any users as well. We've seen this super popular for enterprise users who are working across multiple departments, to even folks that are on research teams, right? You might have folks that are in university or maybe on a different time zone. You could always collaborate in real time, just as you would any sort of Notion doc, Google Doc, or any other collaboration environment as well. Cool. So that's how you could essentially get started with notebooks. I know this is quite a lot, but you could essentially create as many runs as you want, right? And the cool thing about notebooks, again, is in this settings panel here of the notebook, if you click into the edit details, you could add in really specific custom instructions just for this notebook alone, right? Typically, like in threads, for example, if you add custom instructions, it'll carry out throughout all your conversations. If you have something really specific for this one, say, for example, I only want you to calculate ARR for students whenever calculating ARR. That's something that you could keep in the custom instructions just for this notebook as well. And then you could also add in any descriptions as needed, and you could share it as much as you like. The other cool thing I didn't really touch on in notebooks is the ability to work non-linearly, right? If you're familiar with the threads feature, you could work pretty much just top to bottom, and you just keep on adding in new cells or new conversations. But in this case, at any point in the analysis, you could always just add in a new cell to either add in new data, change the way that you're doing the analysis. Maybe you want to go a different direction, or just go a different way and just add in some new cells without needing to work just in one direction. I find that very useful. If you ever see Julius either taking a different direction that you didn't want the analysis to go, or hey, maybe you realize there's a different area you want to explore, you don't need to just tell Julius, hey, let's actually go back like 15 prompts and think through it. Let's actually instead go to the cell, add in a brand new cell, and just execute it from here. Cool. And then last few things that I'll touch on, really basic functionality. You can collapse all the results. Very useful if, again, you're just confident that Julius is outputting what you want, and then you just want, at the end of the day, the end reports, you can collapse it. And then the other thing is the run all button, right? So if you do have a really solid workflow, maybe you have one that really cleans and structures your data and gets it ready for a presentation that you're going to make, you could simply press run all, and it will run all the cells from start to finish. And the way that you can sort of see that is if I did either pressing the run all button from here, or if you click on the run all button on the cell, it'll run from this point forward, and you'll see that every single other cell that's going to be run will be queued up, right? So these are the next cells in line to be run. Really common. Finally, before we stop, I'm going to go ahead and go over here, and I'm going to say, can you give me a link to the report to download? And like always, any of the outputs from your notebooks can be shared in, will be created in your My Files as Julius creates new outputs. And then you could also ask Julius to give you a specific link to download as well, too. And like before, you can see all the different runs here. So if I do use this notebook over and over again, you'll be able to see all the different individual runs, and you can see the progress that you had made. Or if you wanted to restart and reset, it makes it really easy to navigate there, too. Cool. All right, I think that's quite a lot of material. Hopefully it's not too much, but again, this is mostly from feedback from users that they want to know how to use notebooks more and more. So again, reach out to us. Let us know either in the chat here, or if you're watching this webinar recording, reach out to us either in the comments or reach out to us on team@julius.ai for any questions that you have about notebooks. I'll talk about some other resources while we have you here. You can go to the documentation as well. And we do have a notebook specific page that has all the different features that I talked about in this webinar, as well as any new features as the Julius team makes them. You can see them here in the notebooks page. Also, you can go to the community forum, which I really do suggest you guys do join. Great way for us to interact and get some feedback and just dialogue going, not just from Julius staff here who also responds to messages, but from other users, as you can see on this webinar, users around the world who are using Julius as well. So definitely welcome you guys to join, create your account, use the same exact account that you used to sign up with Julius, introduce yourselves, and really love to hear what you're working on, especially if you're finding some use cases out of notebooks too. And you could even go into the showcase here and you could see some of the notebooks that some of our great community members have put out for some, like for example, one from Dow Jones Analysis and Saros Cycles from our one of our great user subs here. Or even ones where you could see like, hey, we could see the Grand Slam evolution, taking a look at some of this tennis data. So would love to see what you guys are working on as well. Finally, if you really are interested in data connectors, right? If you guys do have data stored in BigQuery, in Snowflake, in any other sort of area, that you might have your data stored in, let us know. These are the ones that we've built out, and all of these you could use inside of your notebook. Perhaps that's webinar 103 session that we could have together, how to query and use data connections inside notebooks. But if you're not seeing the one that you guys use here, please just click here on Tell Us. Let us know. We're really on pace to roll out at least 1 to 2 connectors almost every week or so. The team's really been heads down working on building these out because it's really exciting to show exactly how easy it is to simply just take your data without needing to query it, download it, upload it into Julius, analyze it, download it, put it back up into your data warehouse. It really is a game changer. So super excited to demo that for us. So if you guys are interested, fill out the type form, and then we'll follow up as well with an invitation to our beta Slack channel too. If you do find, hey, I do use Postgres or I do use BigQuery and I do have my data there, you can go ahead and test it out, and then we'd love to get your feedback there as well. Cool. Before I take a quick pause for question and answers, I'm gonna go back to the Twitter thread, and we're gonna talk through this for folks that had joined after I announced it. Again, woo! Julius' second birthday. You know, we couldn't be here without you guys. Really thank you guys so much for your support over all these years, 2 years. You know, we wouldn't have been able to do it first without your guys' support and also your feedback over all this time. So looking to kick off these next 2 weeks with some really exciting sweepstakes. Basically, just create something in Julius, you know, whether it's something using your own data and it's some data that you're working with. Maybe it's your own use case. Maybe you're doing some really cool research. Again, you can just share with us some of the visuals that you've created on Twitter. Tag us at julius.ai_ here, and then add in this tag, and we'll do a drawing every single day. And we have some really killer swag to send you guys. I'm also going to plug our merch store, which you guys can take a look at. merch.julius.ai. You'll see some of the cool things that you have, and we have a lot more coming to this page as well. Hasn't been released yet, but I'm just going to show you guys because you guys took the time to join this webinar, some cool things that you can have coming your way for joining. So please do share. Again, we love to see what you guys are making, and we want to give back to the community who's helped support us over all of these years too. So again, you can follow this here, and follow us on Julius AI if you haven't already. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and go back to my software here, and I'm going to switch over to the Q&A. I'm going to answer any questions that you guys have. I know that Laura and our team have been on here answering folks' questions, but if there's any top of mind, whether it's something related to notebooks or something I didn't cover, happy to answer it now in this last few minutes. Oh, and finally, I don't think I mentioned this, but if you do have any feedback about this, we will send out a feedback survey. Again, let us know like if these sessions are helpful, if there's something else that you want us to cover in these webinar sessions. This is our third one so far, and so far I think the feedback has been positive, but if there's something that you guys do want us to cover, whether it's a use case, specific feature, maybe, as I mentioned before, data connectors would be a good one to walk through, let us know. You know, we're always looking for feedback on ways that we could at least make it easier to use Julius over time for you guys. Cool. Awesome, awesome. Take one more minute if there's any last questions. I think we covered all of them. So cool. Thank you guys so much for joining. We'll see you guys in the next ones. Again, subscribe to our YouTube to get notified. Also, you can subscribe to both our Luma or also even follow us on LinkedIn. We post when these are coming up as well. And we'll see you guys in the next video, and really looking forward to seeing your submissions for Julius's birthday. We want to celebrate with y'all. All right, take care. Have a great one.